I portray all that is magnificent and beautiful in the human spirit.
Michael Wilkinson has been a sculptor for 20 years. He works in New York City, and he has chosen a very difficult medium to explore. That medium is cast acrylic, and he has created the most wonderful series of sculptures within that medium.
I portray the ideal in my work. The ideal shows us the possibilities in life and the potentialities within ourselves. And this is what makes art so exciting. It can be uplifting and life-affirming at the same time. And this is what I mean when I say that art at its best is fuel for the spirit. I start with an idea, and I begin exploring the idea through writing and sketches. I then move to the maquettes. Those are small versions of what the piece will be, but they're very rough. But they give a sense of what the dimension and the volume of the work will be. This is the maquette for Moonscape 1, Terra Luna. Very rough, but it gives me enough of an idea of what the piece will be so that when I sculpt it, I can go ahead with confidence that it's going to work. After I've completed the maquette studies, I move immediately to the clay work itself. I use water clay. It has a wet consistency to it when you start out, so you can build the piece up very quickly and be very spontaneous with the work. But then as the work proceeds, the clay loses its moisture. It becomes harder and accepts detail in a much better way than it does when it's wet. Acrylic has its challenges. I have to be able to look at an opaque medium like plaster or clay and imagine what will be seen on the inside looking through the work. I always have a very clear idea of what the piece will look like before I start the work. I am self-taught as a sculptor, and though I never apprenticed with another artist, I consider the great masters of ancient Greece, the Renaissance, and the 19th century to be my teachers.
When the artist works alone, he delves deep into himself.
I love to work alone. There's a quiet serenity in my studio. The work just flows. So then I make the plaster model, and then the plaster model is refined. The beauty of plaster is that you can refine the surface to a much higher degree, and clay this isn't possible with. And then I submit it for casting, and a mold is made of that. That mold is used to make the acrylics. The acrylic is a liquid material. It's a mixture of a powder and a liquid that gets poured into the mold, and then the acrylic comes from there. Oh, that's a good casting. That looks great. When an acrylic comes out of the mold that it's been poured into, it's very rough. You can't see through it. It needs to be ground. It needs to be polished. It needs to have the figures resanded and refined and then blasted. Can you get this top plane too right here?
It is a complicated process, one that shows the artist's hand in every aspect of it, and one that is very much controlled by the artist who not only understands the craft, but the ins and outs of the material itself. I love the figurative quality that's derived from mythological subjects, and I also love the material in which Michael has developed these subjects. It creates an ambience of light and movement heretofore unavailable in any other kind of material.
I want to portray men and women as having the power to make their dreams become reality. For example, with Pinnacle, there's a woman who's standing with her arms up. She's reaching up and she's aspiring to something. I think that it's important that we aspire to higher levels in our lives. This piece is Crystal Fire, and it's an example of how I blend the human form with the abstract. The abstract part is the outer form, which is a flame. It's crystallized. All the angles are very sharp and clean. At the heart of the flame are man and woman, and they are the essence of what I think of when I think of passion. Interiors is about how in a relationship it's important to have time alone, and yet it's important, of course, to have time together. The man and the woman are together, but as the piece turns, depending on which side you're looking at, either the male or the female figure leaves, and leaves the other to their solitude. This is the acrylic sculpture that the limited edition catalog will go into. This is a bas-relief of a female figure in profile. It's very thin. The figure starts off very rough. I use tools that leave lines all over the entire surface. I call these contour lines. They really highlight and accentuate the contours of the piece. When I'm happy with the way the contours show, I then proceed to smooth the work out and make it look more lifelike. Acrylic is a space-age material, and yet it's timeless. I can portray universal and timeless themes with it, and yet I can do it in new ways. I think the potential of acrylic, the medium itself, is inexhaustible. And so in that sense, I intend to work in acrylic forever. I portray the ideal in my work. The ideal shows us the possibilities in life and the potentialities within ourselves.
When you look at Michael's work, you know that you've discovered something extraordinarily exciting. It is poetry in motion.